Hello, my name is Kreeta Niemi and I work as an academic research fellow here at the Department of Teacher Education in University of Jyväskylä. And I lead a research project here which is called Classroom Interaction Beyond Talk, Diverse Needs of User of Space, Embodiment and Materiality. So this project, it investigates how the recent changes in pedagogy and learning spaces are being enacted in everyday classroom interaction while paying attention to the alignment of teaching and learning interactions and diverse needs of students. And this project it is funded by the Academy of Finland. And today I'm going to talk about diverse participation structures in open learning spaces in Finland. And by open learning spaces, I mean schools and classrooms that don't have same-sized classrooms for certain amount of students. Instead, they rely on more flexible use of architecture. And there are not designated desks for students anymore or teachers' podiums. Instead, there can be larger spaces, smaller spaces for specialized working areas, or there can be learning zones and different kind of furniture. And usually they involve multiple classes of students and teachers. They are co-working in teams. Usually learning activities in those spaces, they rely quite much on the use of digital technology. And in Finland, my data is from Finland. So in Finland, the situation is at the moment that every new basic education school, it involves open and flexible designs, at least to some extent. But of course, every school is a unique one. And today I'm going to talk about students' participation in these learning spaces and diverse participation structures. So today in my presentation, I'm especially interested in student participation in these open learning spaces. So the open learning spaces, the renewed school architecture, and the preferred learning activities in those spaces, they shape the everyday classroom interaction practices. They shape the teaching practices. Like I said, that for example, teachers, they are co-working, teaching in teams, which usually involves, for example, that teachers, they are making rounds in those spaces. And students, they are usually studying in peer groups. So there is strong emphasis on self-regulated and autonomous learning, and students, they are encouraged to recruit help from the peers. What I also have observed is that some part of the work the students, they are doing independently and some part of collaboratively. And there is also this kind of like interdependency between teachers and students, by which I mean that some part of the activities the students, they can do or are required to do by themselves, and in some part of the activities they are depending on teachers' help. So this is kind of like interdependency. And at least for me, this is really interesting, and because we need that students, their learning needs are very diverse, and students, they are very different. So for me, it's really interesting that how we can observe what all kind of participation is possible in these learning spaces. And I use the concept participation structure. And the concept is from Ewing Kaufman, and it differentiates how people are involved in interactional setting and participate in that setting. So I use video data from everyday classroom interaction, and I look at the student participation, and also I take into account the actual use of space. So how the students and teachers, how they use the space, how they mobilize their bodies, what is the role of embodied interaction, and all kind of like verbal and non-verbal behavior, and how they use the material such as digital technology. And my research question is that how is learning interaction organized and managed by the participants, and how students are involved and participate in interaction. And I have observed this. So I have video recorded everyday classroom interaction by using multiple little GoPro video cameras. And also my data includes ethnographic memos from the research settings. I have used multimodal conversation analysis and interaction choreography as methods to analyze my data. And now I'm going to tell about my preliminary findings. So this sub-project is going on. I have found 3 types of participation structures that are the most common ones in those learning spaces. And the first participation structure is in which student is encouraging other students. So they are really encouraging other students. They are offering their help. They are scaffolding other students. And they work as a teacher assistants. But I mean by teacher assistants that they are not purposefully asked to serve as teacher assistants, but they are doing the same work, mostly the same work as teachers do in those learning spaces. But they are not giving like teacher imposed rules or teacher directions like go there, do it like this. Instead, they are using phrases that it's better to use it like this or something else, so they are giving just suggestions, not directions. But those students, they are very aware of others, and they are very sensitive to notice the students who need help, and they offer their help. And I also think that at the same time they are creating a kind of like egalitarian culture. So a peer culture in which every peer has a kind of like egalitarian status. And the second participation structure is in which student is observing. So those students, they are quite much observing where are the teachers. They prefer working close to their teachers. They usually prefer recruiting help from their teachers than from their peers. And usually they search for validation from teacher for their activities. Usually they seem to be more focused on when teacher is somehow leading the discussion. So although that I said that in open learning spaces there are not so much teacher-led teaching anymore, but somehow these students they seem to be more focused on when teacher has the most responsibility from the action. Usually the phrases those students use are some kind of like, I don't understand, how do I do this? Or when they search for validation, it's like, look, I made those activities. And the third participation structure is when student is withdrawing from learning. So they withdraw from learning interaction by themselves or as a part of the peer group. So the reasons for those withdrawals are that they don't have interest for learning, or they prefer something else, or they don't have capabilities to be focused on the learning. When they withdraw from learning, they can go to some kind of nook or hide themselves, or they can, for example, use the space or materiality for other purposes like entertaining themselves. They can, for example, throw the pillows or something like that. Those students usually they don't seek teacher assistance or peer help. They don't recruit help. So these three types of participation structures are the most common ones based on my preliminary findings, and yeah, it would be lovely to discuss more. But thank you for your attention.